A modest woman stood silently as wealthy elites ridiculed her at an exclusive art exhibition. New custodian, Eleanor Blackwood sneered loudly, causing laughter to ripple through the crowd. But when a renowned art expert arrived, everything changed. They were about to discover that Sophia Winters was wealthier than all of them combined. The Ainsworth Gallery of Contemporary Art gleamed under sophisticated lighting, its marble floors reflecting the sparkling jewelry and designer ensembles of London's elite. A charity event to raise funds for arts education had transformed the main exhibition hall into an ocean of affluence and prestige. Sophia Winters stepped through the grand entrance, her hazel eyes taking in the scene with quiet appreciation. At 46, she carried herself with understated confidence. The simple cream blouse, tailored charcoal pants, and minimal makeup contrasted sharply with the extravagance around her. No precious stones adorned her neck. No luxury brand emblazoned her modest handbag. "Name, please?" asked the attendant, a hint of doubt in his voice as he surveyed her attire. "Sophia Winters," she replied softly. The young man's finger moved down the list with visible skepticism. His eyebrows rose slightly when he found her name. "Oh yes, Ms. Winters. Welcome." Sophia nodded politely and accepted her entry card, moving into the gallery space where servers circulated with champagne flutes and appetizers on silver trays. Near a striking abstract installation, Eleanor Blackwood held court with her usual followers. At 52, she maintained her position as the self-appointed queen of London's social scene, through strategic donations and even more strategic friendships. Her tailored crimson dress and diamond necklace, the uniform of new money, complemented her perfectly styled silver blonde hair. "Darlings, did you see the Hargrove collection?" Eleanor's voice carried deliberately. "Simply divine, though I told Charles the pricing was a bit presumptuous, even for him." Heads nodded in agreement. Champagne glasses clinked. No one dared disagree with Eleanor Blackwood. Sophia moved through the space quietly, stopping to truly observe each painting, her head tilting slightly as she absorbed the details. She declined champagne with a gentle shake of her head, focused instead on the artwork. Eleanor's gaze drifted across the room, settling on Sophia. Her eyes narrowed as she catalogued the simple outfit, the unadorned fingers, the sensible shoes. A smirk formed on her glossy lips. "Who'd let the help in early?" She stage-whispered to her companions, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Patricia Wellington, Eleanor's loyal second-in-command, giggled behind her hand. "Maybe she's lost. The service entrance is around back." Sophia remained absorbed in a vibrant oil painting, seemingly oblivious to their comments. She moved closer to the canvas, studying the brushwork with genuine interest. Behind her, footsteps approached. Eleanor's perfume, an exclusive French fragrance, announced her presence before she spoke. "The artwork is quite valuable," Eleanor said with exaggerated slowness, as if speaking to a child. "Best not to stand too close. Wouldn't want any accidents." Sophia turned slightly, meeting Eleanor's gaze with calm dignity. "Thank you for your concern," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "I was admiring the technique." Eleanor's eyebrows arched dramatically. "Oh, you know about technique. How fascinating." Her voice dripped with condescension. She turned to her friends, who had gathered like vultures. "She knows about technique, ladies." Laughter rippled through the group. Sophia simply offered a small smile and moved to the next painting, maintaining her composure, though a faint pink had touched her cheeks. "Should someone tell her the fundraiser hasn't started yet?" Patricia said, loud enough for Sophia to hear. "The cleaning staff usually finishes before guests arrive." Eleanor's smile widened, cruel and satisfied. "Perhaps she's the new custodian, though someone should really tell her about the dress code." More laughter. Sophia's back straightened almost imperceptibly, but she continued her methodical appreciation of the art, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. "I simply can't bear it," Eleanor declared, her voice carrying across the gallery. Someone has to say something. This is the Ainsworth, not some public library. Sophia had moved to a sculpture display, her fingers lightly clasped behind her back as she circled a modern piece, studying its curves and angles. Eleanor glided toward her, her entourage trailing like expensive perfume. "Excuse me," she called out. "I believe there's been some confusion. The general admission event is tomorrow. Tonight is for donors and patrons only." Several nearby conversations quieted as people turned to watch. Sophia looked up, meeting Eleanor's gaze directly. "There's no confusion. I have an invitation." Her voice remained calm, neither defensive nor confrontational. Eleanor's eyes widened in mock surprise. "Really? How unusual." She extended her manicured hand. "I'm Eleanor Blackwood, chairwoman of the board, and you are?" "Sophia Winters." She shook Eleanor's hand briefly. A flicker of annoyance crossed Eleanor's face at the lack of recognition her name had produced. "And what brings you to our little fundraiser, Miss Winters? Are you interested in the arts?" The question dripped with insinuation. Sophia nodded. "Very much so." How lovely, Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. "And what do you do, exactly?" Before Sophia could answer, Patricia interrupted with a theatrical gasp. "Oh, Eleanor, maybe she's one of the scholarship recipients, you know, from your foundation." She turned to Sophia with exaggerated kindness. "Do you work with underprivileged children, dear?" Several women tittered behind their champagne glasses. "I work in business," Sophia replied simply. "Business," Eleanor repeated, exchanging amused glances with her friends. How wonderfully vague. What kind of business? Retail? Administration? Her eyes dragged over Sophia's simple attire once more. "Customer service, perhaps? Investment and development," Sophia answered, her expression unchanged despite the growing circle of onlookers. Eleanor laughed, a tinkling sound without warmth. "Of course, and I'm sure you're very successful." She gestured to Sophia's plain blouse. "One can tell by your distinctive fashion choices." The group of socialites barely contained their laughter now. A few guests looked uncomfortable, but remained silent, unwilling to cross Eleanor Blackwood. "Eleanor, darling," called a silver-haired woman, approaching the group. "They're about to unveil the Bennett piece. You simply must give your opinion before anyone else sees it." "Of course, Victoria, coming." Eleanor turned back to Sophia, her voice honeyed with false sincerity. "Do enjoy the evening, Miss Winters. Feel free to take a brochure. The donation options start quite small." She emphasized the word small with a patronizing smile. "Every little bit helps." As Eleanor turned to leave, she added loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "And if you're looking for employment, I believe the gallery gift shop is hiring. Something more suitable for your talents." Sophia remained still, her expression giving away nothing as laughter followed Eleanor across the room. An older gentleman who had observed the exchange approached Sophia, offering a sympathetic smile. "Don't mind Eleanor. She treats everyone that way unless they have a recognizable surname or a 7-figure donation history." Sophia glanced at him, the corner of her mouth lifting slightly. "I'm used to it. People see what they expect to see." "Indeed they do." He extended his hand. "Thomas Wilson. I curate the modern wing." "Sophia Winters. Pleased to meet you." She shook his hand, then returned her attention to the sculpture. "Your collection is impressive, Mr. Wilson." Thomas's eyes lit up with genuine appreciation. "You know art." "I know what moves me," she replied. "This piece, for instance, the tension between structure and freedom. It's quite powerful." Thomas looked at her with new interest. That's exactly what the artist intended. Most people miss it entirely. The evening progressed with Sophia moving methodically through the gallery, despite Eleanor's continuing commentary. "Imagine thinking that outfit is appropriate for the Ainsworth, and someone should really tell her the canapes aren't free." Sophia remained absorbed in the artwork. Thomas Wilson found himself increasingly drawn to her genuine interest. Unlike most attendees, who barely glanced at the collections between social maneuvers, Sophia asked thoughtful questions about provenance and technique. "You mentioned this artist died before receiving recognition," Sophia asked, studying a small but striking canvas tucked in a corner. Thomas nodded. "Benjamin Reed, brilliant but completely unknown in his lifetime. This piece sold for just £150 at a boot sale in 1985. Now it's worth at least £2 million, Sophia finished. The market for overlooked modernists has exploded in the last decade." Thomas's eyebrows rose. "You really do know your art." Across the room, Eleanor observed their conversation with narrowed eyes. "Look at her," she hissed to Patricia, monopolizing poor Thomas. "He's too polite to escape." Patricia smirked. "Perhaps she's trying to get a discount on a print. Or a job application," added another socialite. "The gallery is always looking for security guards." Eleanor laughed loudly, drawing attention. Sophia glanced over briefly, then returned to her conversation with Thomas. "That painting she's so fascinated by looks like something my 5-year-old nephew could create," Eleanor declared, loud enough to carry. "Some people are so easily impressed by splashes of color." Thomas frowned at the comment, but Sophia touched his arm lightly. "It's all right," she murmured. "Not everyone sees value in the same things." Eleanor, annoyed at Sophia's composure, approached again, champagne glass in hand. "Thomas, darling, you're being monopolized. The Huntingtons are dying to ask about the new acquisition." Thomas hesitated. "Eleanor, Ms. Winters here has some fascinating insights about—" "I'm sure she does," Eleanor interrupted with a dismissive wave. "But the Huntingtons donated $500,000 last year. Their insights take priority, wouldn't you agree?" The curator's discomfort was evident, caught between professional obligation and genuine conversation. "Please," Sophia said quietly. "Don't let me keep you from your duties, Mr. Wilson." Thomas nodded apologetically and allowed himself to be led away by Eleanor, who threw a triumphant glance over her shoulder. Left alone again, Sophia continued her tour of the gallery, now openly followed by Eleanor's whispers and pointing. Some guests began to stare, wondering who this plainly dressed woman was who had somehow earned Eleanor Blackwood's focused disdain. "Probably crushed the event," one woman whispered. "Security is so lax these days." The evening reached its centerpiece moment, the unveiling of a recently discovered masterpiece by renowned artist Edward Bennett, expected to be the highest-selling item at the charity auction. Gallery director Charles Hargrove took to the small podium, tapping his glass for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed patrons of the Ainsworth, it is my great pleasure to present Dawn at Cornwall, a long-lost Bennett that has not been seen in public for over 40 years. The crowd gathered around as two white-gloved assistants carefully removed the covering, revealing a breathtaking seascape bathed in golden morning light. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sophia moved closer, her expression one of genuine appreciation. "Absolutely magnificent," Eleanor declared loudly. "Charles, you've outdone yourself. The Blackwood Foundation will definitely be bidding on this treasure." Charles beamed. "We're starting the bidding at $3 million, Eleanor. A bargain for a Bennett of this caliber." "Indeed," Eleanor replied with practiced nonchalance. Sophia had made her way to the front of the crowd, standing directly before the painting, studying its details with focused attention. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice sharp. "Perhaps you could give others a chance to see. Those of us who might actually be able to bid." She emphasized the last words with a pointed look at Sophia's simple attire. Several people snickered. Sophia stepped aside wordlessly, but her eyes never left the painting. "I don't even know why she's still here," Patricia Stage whispered. "It's like watching someone window shop for a Bentley in their pajamas." Eleanor's laugh was cutting. "Some people have no sense of their place. It's embarrassing, really." Sophia finally turned, meeting Eleanor's gaze directly for the first time. Something in her quiet dignity made Eleanor falter momentarily. "The brushwork in the lower right corner," Sophia said clearly, addressing Charles Hargrove. "It doesn't match Bennett's technique from that period." A hush fell over the nearby crowd. Charles blinked in surprise. "I beg your pardon?" "Look closely," Sophia continued, pointing without touching. "Bennett never used that cross-hatching method until his later works. This section appears different from the rest." Charles leaned in, studying the area she indicated, his brow furrowed. Eleanor stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you question the authentication? Who exactly do you think you are?" Sophia opened her mouth to respond when the gallery doors swung open, and a distinguished man in his 60s entered. His silver hair and impeccable suit gave him an air of authority that immediately drew all eyes. "That's William Huntington," Patricia whispered, "the biggest art collector in Europe." "And right on time," Eleanor said, smoothing her skirt and preparing to intercept him. But William Huntington had already spotted something, or someone, across the room. His face broke into a broad smile as he called out, "Sophia Winters, the woman herself." The room went silent as William Huntington strode purposefully across the gallery floor, arms outstretched towards Sophia. His voice, accustomed to boardrooms and lecture halls, carried effortlessly. "When they told me Sophia Winters might attend tonight, I almost didn't believe it. You're notoriously difficult to catch at these events." Sophia's reserved smile warmed considerably as she accepted his embrace. "Hello, William. It's been too long." Eleanor stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to her lips, watching the interaction with growing confusion. William Huntington, whose collection was valued at over £300 million, whose opinion could make or break an artist's career, was embracing the woman she'd been ridiculing all evening. "Ladies and gentlemen," William announced, keeping a friendly arm around Sophia's shoulders. "For those who don't know, you're in the presence of greatness tonight. Sophia Winters rarely graces these events with her presence." Charles Hargrove hurried forward, confusion etched on his face. "Mr. Huntington, you know Miss Winters." "Know her?" William laughed heartily. "My God, man. Everyone in the art world knows Sophia Winters. Or they should." He turned to Sophia with admiration. "Your foundation's work preserving indigenous art forms alone would be legacy enough. But your eye for emerging talent is simply unmatched." Thomas Wilson stepped forward, comprehension dawning on his face. "You're that Sophia Winters, of Winters Enterprises?" Sophia nodded, her expression remaining modest. "The same." "Good heavens," Thomas breathed. "Your acquisition of the Richardson collection last year was masterful. And your donation to the National Gallery's Restoration Department." Eleanor's face had drained of color. "Winters Enterprises," she whispered to Patricia, who looked equally stunned. William turned his attention to the Bennett painting. "Now, Sophia, I heard you mentioning something about the brushwork. You always did have the most discerning eye in the business." Sophia approached the painting again, this time with William and Charles flanking her. "The technique in this section," she indicated, "doesn't align with Bennett's documented approach from this period. I believe it may have been restored, perhaps not entirely faithfully to the original." Charles examined the area more carefully, then nodded slowly. "You know, I think you're right. Our authentication team mentioned some restoration, but didn't flag it as significant." "It doesn't diminish the piece's value," Sophia added kindly. "But it should be noted in the provenance." William shook his head in admiration. "This is why your collection is unparalleled, Sophia. You see what others miss." Around them, the crowd had begun to whisper urgently. "Sophia Winters of Winters Enterprises, worth billions, owns one of the largest private art collections in Europe. Turned down a seat on the Tate Modern Board. Donates millions anonymously." Eleanor Blackwood stood perfectly still, her face a mask of horrified realization. "Sophia," William said, guiding her toward the stunned gallery director. "Charles has been trying to secure a meeting with you for months. Your assistant is remarkably effective at keeping your calendar clear." Charles Hargrove extended his hand, practically vibrating with eagerness. "Miss Winters, I had no idea you would be attending tonight. We would have prepared a proper welcome." "That's precisely why I come unannounced, Charles," Sophia replied with gentle humor. "I prefer to observe without ceremony." Eleanor Blackwood pushed forward, the social instincts overriding her shock. Her face had transformed into a mask of delight, as though the previous hours had never happened. "Sophia Winters, what a remarkable surprise." She air-kissed near Sophia's cheeks. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced. I'm Eleanor Blackwood, chairwoman of—" "We met earlier," Sophia stated simply. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Eleanor's smile faltered only momentarily. "Did we? I meet so many people at these events. You must forgive me." William Huntington raised an eyebrow. "Sophia rarely forgets a face, Eleanor. One of her many talents." Around them, the other socialites who had participated in the mockery began to shift uncomfortably. Patricia Wellington had turned an alarming shade of red, suddenly intensely interested in her champagne glass. "Ms. Winters," Charles interjected, "would you honor us with your thoughts on the new acquisitions? Your insight would be invaluable." Sophia nodded graciously, and as she moved with Charles and William toward another section of the gallery, the whispers exploded behind them. "Did you see Eleanor's face? Winters Enterprises is worth what? 20 billion. She could buy this entire gallery without blinking. And Eleanor called her the custodian." Thomas Wilson fell into step beside them, his expression both sheepish and amused. "I should have recognized you immediately, Ms. Winters. Your donation to our educational program last year was transformative." Sophia smiled. "The program's success is due to your implementation, Mr. Wilson. I merely provided resources." As they toured the collection, more guests gravitated toward their group, eager to be associated with Sophia Winters now that her identity was known. The transformation was as immediate as it was transparent. Eleanor remained rooted to her spot, her social circle disintegrating as members peeled away to orbit Sophia instead. Patricia approached her, voice hushed. "Eleanor, she's the Winters behind Winters Tower in Canary Wharf, and the Medical Research Center at Oxford. And—" "I know who she is," Eleanor hissed, her composure cracking. "Why was she dressed like that? Why didn't anyone warn me?" "They say she's worth over 12 billion, Patricia continued, watching Sophia across the room. "And we spent the evening calling her—" Eleanor cut her off with a sharp gesture. "We need to fix this. Now." The crowd around Sophia had grown, with socialites who had previously ignored or mocked her now vying for her attention. Sophia maintained her quiet dignity, giving thoughtful responses to questions about art, but deflecting personal inquiries with practiced ease. Eleanor circled the periphery of the group, waiting for an opening. When Sophia stepped away briefly to examine a small sculpture, Eleanor pounced. "Sophia, darling," she gushed, positioning herself directly in Sophia's path. "I simply must apologize for our little misunderstanding earlier. Had I known who you were, it would have changed your behavior," Sophia finished, her voice gentle but pointed. Eleanor blinked rapidly. "Well, of course, we would have welcomed you properly. Which highlights the issue, doesn't it?" Sophia met Eleanor's gaze steadily. "Our treatment of others shouldn't depend on their bank accounts or social standing." William Huntington, overhearing, nodded approvingly. "Sophia is famous for it, you know. Shows up places without fanfare. Observes how people behave naturally." He lowered his voice conspiratorially, though still loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "She's known to make significant donations to institutions where staff and patrons show kindness to everyone, not just VIPs. Eleanor's face paled further. "I assure you that's exactly the philosophy of the Blackwood Foundation. We value all members of the community. Your actions speak volumes, Eleanor, Sophia said quietly. As do mine. Eleanor opened her mouth to respond, but Charles Hargrove approached, practically glowing with excitement. Ms. Winters, we're about to begin the auction portion of our evening. Would you do us the honor of saying a few words? Your passion for arts education aligns perfectly with tonight's cause. Sophia hesitated, then nodded briefly. If you think it would help. As she followed Charles to the podium, Eleanor remained behind, her carefully constructed social throne crumbling beneath her. Socialites who had laughed at her jokes earlier now avoided eye contact. At the podium, Sophia spoke without notes, her voice clear and unpretentious. Art has the power to transform lives. Not through its monetary value, but through its ability to foster empathy and understanding. When we support arts education, we're investing in a future where people see beyond surfaces to appreciate the depth and complexity beneath. Her words carried a subtle rebuke that wasn't lost on the audience. Several guests glanced uncomfortably at Eleanor, who maintained a rigid smile even as her knuckles whitened around her clutched purse. The auction began, with Sophia's presence electrifying the room. Bids climbed higher than expected as donors competed for recognition. When the contested Bennett painting came up, the bidding quickly soared past $5 million. Eleanor bid aggressively, desperate to salvage her reputation. $6 million, she called out, her voice strained or triumphant. The auctioneer acknowledged her bid, scanning the room. $6 million from Mrs. Blackwood. Do we have 6.5? Sophia raised her paddle slightly. $10 million. The room gasped collectively. $10 million from Ms. Winters. The auctioneer stammered. Going once. Eleanor's face crumpled in defeat. The auction concluded with Sophia's unprecedented £10 million purchase of the Bennett painting, instantly setting a new record for the Ainsworth's annual fundraiser. Applause filled the gallery as Sophia signed the necessary paperwork. What will you do with the painting? A reporter asked, having rushed over from the press section. Sophia smiled. Donate it back to the gallery's permanent collection, with one condition, that it be displayed in the educational wing, where students can study it. More applause erupted. Charles Hargrove looked close to tears of joy. William Huntington chuckled beside her. Always teaching lessons, Sophia, in more ways than one. As the evening wound down, Sophia prepared to leave. The crowd parted respectfully, faces that had earlier shown disdain now beaming with admiration. Thomas Wilson approached to say goodbye. Ms. Winters, thank you for your generosity tonight, and I must apologize for not recognizing you earlier. Sophia shook her head. No apology needed, Mr. Wilson. You treated me with respect before you knew my name or net worth. That speaks to your character. She glanced meaningfully across the room, where Eleanor stood isolated, her social circle having disintegrated. True character reveals itself in how we treat those we believe can do nothing for us. Near the exit, Eleanor made one last desperate attempt at reconciliation, stepping into Sophia's path. Sophia, I do hope you'll accept my invitation to the Blackwood Foundation luncheon next month. We'd be honored to have someone of your perspective join us. Sophia regarded her thoughtfully. Thank you, Eleanor, but I'm quite selective about where I spend my time these days. She paused, then added kindly, perhaps consider that the new custodian you meet tomorrow might be worth knowing for who she is, not what she owns. Eleanor flinched at her own words being reflected back to her. Sophia continued toward the door, where her driver waited. William walked her out, chatting amiably. Behind them, the social hierarchy of the room had been permanently altered. Whispers followed in Sophia's wake. They say she wears simple clothes everywhere. Donated half her fortune to education programs. Never puts her name on buildings despite funding them. Sophia Winters had entered the Ainsworth Gallery as an invisible woman and left as its most memorable presence. Not because of her wealth, but because of the quiet dignity with which she carried it. In her wake, She left a powerful reminder that true worth can't be measured by designer labels or social connections, but by how we treat others when we think no one important is watching. Hidden fortunes walk among us every day, wearing the cloak of humility. The next time you dismiss someone based on appearance, remember, wealth doesn't always announce itself with flashy logos and diamonds. If this story touched your heart, remember that appearances never tell the whole story. The barista you meet, the janitor you pass, the quiet person in simple clothes. Any of them might be extraordinary in ways you'd never imagine. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, only to be surprised by who they really were? Share your experience in the comments below. Until next time, remember, kindness costs nothing, but its value is immeasurable. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.